Hi everybody, my name is Spencer Coffer and I am here today to talk about some of the different ways that media has changed since the mid-1900s. There are many different ways that multimedia has evolved to what it is today. I had a conversation with my dad, John Coffer, to get some more insight on the topic and some of the ways that it has impacted him throughout his years. Some of the things that he mentioned was that media is more reachable today. Another thing he said was that there's a much more wide variety of it today, whether it was movies, radio, or music in general. It has all become a lot more clear and produced than what it started as. You have it everywhere you go, such as the car, at home, and even in restaurants. And here are just a few ways that each have evolved over time. Movies and TVs have changed an immense amount from the 1900s until now. Back then it was $3 to see a movie, and now you're paying anywhere from $15 to $18 just for a ticket, not including any food or drink you want once you're in the movie. Once a movie was out of theaters, you wouldn't see it for at least a year after it was gone. TVs were produced and owned a lot less than they are today. And here's my dad to explain his first TV.
It was a big wooden box, probably about 3 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 3 feet deep. And it was wood, and the screen was about this big in the middle, which is about, like 1 foot by 2 foot. It wasn't a very big screen. And we had a dial that had 13 channels on it. And that's how I started watching TV.
I realize that we don't see many of those today. TVs have a lot more buttons, comes with a remote and many different inputs. We can plug many different types of accessories into TVs today, which I think is a huge growth in the TV aspect of media. Ever since I was a kid, personally, we had many different ways we could see movies and TV shows, such as Netflix, on demand, and DVDs. They didn't have any of those back then, so it really shows how production has grown throughout the years. Music in general has changed a huge amount throughout the years. Music in general has become a lot easier to get your hands on, and the production rate has changed drastically. Back then, scratchy records were the most used way to play music until the cassette tape was introduced and came out. Concerts happened a lot less, causing a slower spread of music, and the promotion of artists and bands were slowed as well. We find music with us everywhere today, but here's my dad explaining how difficult it was to bring your music and records around with you were.
Sure, you can't just take a record and, you can pack records away, I guess, but they're big and bulky, and so you were kind of limited to your own house or your friend neighbor's house or whatever, but you couldn't travel with a record, you couldn't play in your car, you couldn't take it on a trip.
So, they only had records in houses or places that had them, really. Now, music has evolved from records and cassette tapes to Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. I know personally it is by far my most used form of media, and I'm sure it is for a lot of other people as well. Radio was often found in cars, and not many other places had radios unless you owned one. Radio was not as used as records and cassette tapes were, because radios often cut out, were spotty in some places, and sometimes even had no music playing. Here's a bit of an experience on how radios were back then.
Not too much radio listening till I was more a teenager and riding in cars and stuff like that, and listening to KSW and Cube 93 and KZOK.
We have radios in cars today too, but we also have radio in different places, such as Apple Radio, Spotify Radio, and even I know my personal TV has a radio within it. So lots of different experiences with radio today than there were back then. Most of the new music that I come across is from the radio, so it has grown in the way that it spreads music a lot better as well. much of the media that we see today has come a long way than it has ever been before. After having the conversation with my dad, it made me really realize how easy it is today to view and listen to all the different types of medias that we have. Back then, media was not part of people's everyday life, and so made it so that face-to-face interaction between people was the main source of media. Media has become one of the biggest interactions between people today, and I think it will only grow from here. So we shall see. I hope that this gave you some insight on how media was back then and how it has grown to today. So thank you for listening.